You have some flour or maza mix, tortilla mix, that you want to vacuum pack, and you'll find that it's much more difficult than rice or beans because the fine dust particles want to prevent the Mylar bag from sealing. So if you can, leave it in the bag. It's really not an airtight bag anyway, and put the whole thing inside your Mylar bag. Now if you have the typical 4.5 pound bag, you're going to see that it really doesn't want to give you enough room to seal. So that means you have to either get a larger bag or take some out, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take some out and we'll leave some in the bag, and we'll seal some outside of the bag. I'm going to remove probably 3 or 4 cups of the flour or mix, and I'm putting it in one of these thin vegetable grocery bags because I think that's going to make it easier to seal when we put that in an overall bag. So I removed 3 cups, and I think that's going to seal up quite nice now. Take a piece of tape, help keep that down a little bit. Now let's see if that fits in there and gives me enough room to seal. I think I have enough room to seal this, so let's give this a try. We're going to go ahead and seal this bag up. And anytime you're dealing with anything that has a fine powder, or you're finding that it's more difficult to seal, let's just use a slightly different method. You're going to use your iron, something that has a nice flat edge on it that you can seal things up with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal up about 80–90% of it. And you want to try to get as much air out as you can right in the beginning, so you don't want to leave any air in the bag. Meaning that you want to seal this as close to the package as possible without leaving the maximum amount of air in it. Before you go too far, either before doing that or before you go too far, take your oxygen absorber. In this case I have a 300cc oxygen absorber. I'm going to drop that down in there. And I'm going to seal this up just a little bit more. There you go. So you can see I have a nice seal, all except for this little edge right here. Now what we're going to do is take this little adapter that I made for my vacuum sealer. It's just a piece of hose. I'm going to push that in. Insert that in the little pocket that I made. And we're going to pull a vacuum on this, holding this as tight as we can and sealing as we pull it out. I'm trying to do this in a direction that you can sort of see. So we're going to go on accessory. See it pulling a nice tight vacuum on this right here. Hopefully you can see that. Slowly pull the tube out, leaving as much of it in as we can. Sealing right behind it. And it's that simple. If you have a little bit of air in here, don't worry, that oxygen absorber is going to take care of that. It doesn't have to be super tight because you have to remember that only about 20% of the air that we breathe is oxygen, the rest is nitrogen. And I'm going to show you another method of doing this as well. Again, we're going to take another package of this tortilla mix. We're going to take about 3 cups out. Now I'm going to show you another method. Seal this up just like we did the other bag. Seal this with an iron. Probably a good idea to put your oxygen absorber in first in case you get a little carried away with the iron and you can't quite fit that in there. Drop that in so it's out of your way. Okay. Now here's a piece of food saver bag. This is about a little over 1.5 inches, and we'll probably cut it about 2 inches. You can sort of see we just have the dimply side here. As long as we don't have the powdery dust here, this shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to put this right in the edge, and you can sort of see that I'm keeping it along the sealing edge, and I'm keeping it a little bit away from the very end. What I want to do this time is, rather than using the iron for the whole thing in this contraption, we're going to use the vacuum sealer itself. Here's a little trick. If you're going to put this in and it's not level, you can see it's a little low here, take something and put it underneath. Grab a cutting board, put it underneath so you have a nice, you're not fighting this. Okay? So I was having a little bit of a difficulty getting the rest of this sealed up. What we're going to do is we're going to seal this a little bit more, right up to the end almost. Okay, and you can see I have this much right here. Here's a little trick. Now that we have 90% of this sealed, we're going to cut this a bit at an angle. And that's going to allow getting this part of it into the vacuum sealer easier than trying to put the whole thing inside the vacuum sealer. Now we're going to just seal this corner. Let me get a little closer here. See, it's not quite wanting to seal. seal, all the air is gone. It's just not quite sealing. So hit stop and seal. Now it's sealing this edge. Then we're going to hurry back up over here. We're going to finish sealing that with the vacuum. So I removed 9 cups of tortilla mix. I have 3 different bags, 3 from each bag. I'm going to put it in this Mylar bag. I didn't tie the ends just yet because I want it to form to the bag a little bit. So it fits in here fine. What I'm going to do is take this end and just sort of fold it in on itself. Try to keep the dust to a minimum. Take an oxygen absorber, drop it inside. A little too much bag here. From the bag. If you leave too much air, it seems to want to seal before all the air is removed. Take a piece of the food saver bag. Might be a little too wide. There you go. And insert it down in here. Now, it's weird, but sometimes I find it really shouldn't make a difference, but sometimes I find if it doesn't seal one way, flip it over. I don't understand why, but sometimes that works. Should be the same on each side. Okay. And going over to the sealer. And then just finishing it up with iron. So let's recap on how to seal a more difficult bag. One of the things that you need to remember, sometimes buying the 25-pound bags are not cheaper. I actually found buying these 4.4-pound bags were 20 cents a pound cheaper than the large bag, and these are much easier to deal with. That's number one. Number two, you want to make sure that you leave yourself enough room to be able to seal the bag properly. If you're fighting it and fighting it and fighting it, take some flour out. Number three, don't forget to put your oxygen absorber inside. Okay? Number four, seal 85% of the bag with the iron first, getting as close to the package content as possible so you're not leaving in a lot of air. Number five, once it's sealed, if you have it sealed 90% of the way, 80% of the way, and you find you have a lot of excess material, you want to be sure to trim that off, otherwise it's not going to fit inside the food saver. Number three, if you find that you're having problems with dust particles and it's hard to seal, make yourself up a simple little tube like this that will fit on the end of your attachment. Just get a piece of hose that fits in there, get a piece of copper tubing, and you can insert that in the small opening, sealing, and as you're pulling it out, run your iron right behind it, seal it out, and completely close that up with the iron. Number 4, if you're using these Food Saver dimple units, sometimes you'll find that it wants to seal on one side better than the other. So if you're having difficulty, flip it over. Number 5 or 6, if you're coming up against the edge and you're finding that it's hard to insert into the vacuum sealer, you can always cut the corner like this, insert your plastic piece like that, and insert this portion into your Food Saver rather than having to insert the whole length. Number 7, remember, you're not having to remove all of the air from the bag. You just need to remove the oxygen. The air that we breathe is 19.5 to 23.5% oxygen. The rest is nitrogen. So you just need to remove about 20% of the oxygen. If you have a bag like this that it's not completely tight, that's fine. That oxygen absorber in there is going to take the oxygen out of it with no issue at all. Number 8, if you're having trouble getting this into the Food Saver, a lot of times it might be too low or too high and you're trying to fight the bag. Set something underneath that makes it a level playing field. Again, notice how I cut the corner so I can insert just this portion rather than the whole thing. That sometimes makes it easier. There we go. Let's see how easy this really can be. Tight seal that it's making. And number 10, if it doesn't seal for you, but it has it almost completely sealed and it's not quite sealing, you can hit the stop and seal button. Number 11, don't forget to go back and seal it with the iron. Sometimes flipping it over is a good idea. And that's it.